hide in Gaius's house. Gaius will engage in a conversation in defense of women. It's a fascinating passage. I wish I had more time, I'd read it with you. Sin, we're told, came through Eve, but salvation comes through Mary. They go and they find the giant Slaygood, and they free Feeble Mind, and he's a weak pilgrim. And then they spend a month with Gaius. This is an attempt to try to show, in the second part, the passage of time. Matthew, Christina's oldest son, will marry Mercy. James, her youngest son, will become engaged to another woman, Phoebe. They invite Feeble Mind and Ready to Halt to join them on the road. They eat at the house of Manson. They spend a long time here. Manson's daughter Grace will marry Christiana's son Samuel, and Martha will marry Christiana's son Joseph. This, again, the attempt to try and show the passage of time. Greatheart subdues then a dragon, so we're going to get a dragon in part 2. The pilgrims will climb the hill called Lucre, where Demos tempted Christian. They hand over the infants, Christiana's grandchildren, to a man who, we're told, cares for kids and children, and therefore they can be safe, because obviously young children can't go on these kinds of pilgrimages. We then have Greatheart, Old Honest, Christina's sons, will kill the giant Despair and destroy his castle. We think about the tearing down of the city of Troy and the walls of Troy. The prisoners, despondent and much afraid, come out of the castle. They finally come to Delectable Mountains, where again the shepherds will show Mount Innocent and Charity, just like they did with Christian in part 1. The shepherds will take them to the palace. Mercy wants a mirror. This is an interesting moment. So there's this mirror. When you look in the mirror, though, you don't see your own reflection as the woman Mercy, but rather you see the face of Christ. And so she wants this mirror, and the shepherds then will work to give her this mirror. The 8th stage in the author's final farewell was how the second part ends. The pilgrims will meet. Valiant for truth repels 3 thieves, and he's standing with his sword drawn. In the enchanted ground they become weary, they stumble. This is a powerful motif. We think about Dante the pilgrim and the times that he stumbles. They find heedless and too bold asleep. They try to wake them up. They can't. Greatheart will light a lantern to guide their way. Beyond the enchanted ground they find steadfast in prayer. He, we're told, repulsed a beautiful and a rich woman, Madame Bauble, who loves parties and money, we are told. The pilgrims arrive in Beulah Land, the celestial city. Then Christina gets an invitation to meet the master in 10 days, obviously death. She says her goodbyes. Each pilgrim receives a special post as well from the master, and at the very end of the second part then, their death is obvious and imminent. That is to say, the life in Pilgrim's Progress, the life that one lives is one's whole life and therefore one's whole journey. Well, that's Pilgrim's Progress. Let's play the game now really quickly at levels 2 and 3. Obviously, at level 2A, the major message of a text like this is the idea that the journey is everything, right? You got to have courage, you got to have sustained will, right? I mean, think about the ways in which that idea is one fundamental to us at our moment in life here as we're coming through 303. So we make up our mind, for example, to do something. I'm going to get better grades. I'm going to work hard. And we do for a while, and then we stop. That's why we're talking this sustained will idea, right? At 2B, as we said already, the key symbol is obviously the journey. The monsters obviously are symbolic of the distractions. T.S. Eliot will say, you'll remember in Burnt Norton, distracted from distraction by distraction, filled fancies and empty of meaning. That whole notion of not able to focus very well. Monkey mind, we might say, right? At level 3A, well, obviously we mentioned a whole lot of titles at the beginning. I mean, just think about the power of the journey as it relates in American literature to something like Twain's The Adventures of Huck Finn. And the idea that, right, the young boy Huck and the runaway slave Jim, they come to these powerful epiphanies through the journey on the Mississippi River. And of course that powerful moment when the young adolescent recognizes that the color of his blood is the same color as Jim's blood. And he has that powerful moment when he realizes, oh, we're all humans together. So it's a keen insight. But the place I would like to go is to think a little bit about the idea of the journey that Whitman will play the game. We've shared these lines with you before, but they're so powerful. So at 3A and at 3B, a challenge for you to consider what Whitman has to say about the journey. Do you remember these lines from Song of Myself, passage 46? The teacher speaking to the student. He says, I know I have the best of time and space and was never measured and never will be measured. I tramp a perpetual journey. Come listen all. When Whitman publishes these lines, of course, Pilgrim's Progress is a book that pretty much every reader knows pretty well. So for him to play this game of the perpetual journey, the lifelong journey, we're playing the same game. He says, my signs are a rainproof coat, good shoes, a staff cut from the woods. No friend of mine takes his ease in my chair. He says, I have no chair, no church, no philosophy. I lead no man to a dinner table, library exchange, but each man and each woman of you I lead upon a knoll, a little hill. My left hand hooking you round the waist, my right hand pointing to landscapes of continents and the public road. Not I, not anyone else can travel that road for you. You must travel it for yourself. It's not far, it's within reach. Perhaps you've been on it since you were born and did not know. Perhaps it's everywhere, on water and on land. Shoulder your duds, dear son, and I will mine, and let us hasten forth, wonderful cities and free nations we shall fetch as we go. Notice Whitman's transcendental, more romantic rendering of Pilgrim's Progress is to see the journey in a different kind of atmosphere, and yet the notion is still a journey. Your life is a journey. Or do you remember these final lines from Song of the Open Road, Whitman's Song of the Open Road, passages 14 and 15 at the very end? Allons, he says, through struggles and wars, the goal was named. That was named cannot be countermanded. Have the past struggles succeeded? What has succeeded? Yourself, your nation, nature? And then, of course, the famous lines. Now understand me well. It is provided in the essence of things that from any fruition of success, no matter what, shall come forth something to make a greater struggle necessary. Of course, pure Pilgrim's Progress. When Whitman writes this and publishes it, right, 1892, deathbed edition, everyone reading understands that he's referencing something like Pilgrim's Progress. He says that my call is the call of battle. I nourish active rebellion. He going with me must go well armed. We think about that when Pilgrim's Progress as well. He going with me goes often with spare diet, poverty, angry enemies, desertions. That is to say, to live a good life is a demand. It's hard. And then he finishes, Allons the road is before us, the 15th passage, it is safe, I've tried it. My own feet have tried it well, be not detained. And then lines that many seniors like to quote back to the teacher. Let the paper remain on the desk unwritten and the book on the shelf unopened. Let the tools remain in the workshop. Let the money remain unearned. Sounding very much like Pilgrim's Progress. Let the school stand. Mind not the cry of the teacher. Let the preacher preach in his pulpit. Let the lawyer plead in the court and the judge expound the law. And then, of course, Camillero. I give you my hand. I give you my love more precious than money. I give you myself before preaching or law. Will you give me yourself? Will you come travel with me? Shall we stick by each other as long as we live? The compelling final lines of Song of the Open Road. Well, there you go. An introduction to Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. I hope that if you haven't read it, maybe you'll be interested to pick it up and to enjoy reading it. Volume 15. We'll come back here in a little bit in Volume 15 with the other part of Volume 15, which is a discussion of two great English poets, Donne and Herbert. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the conversation.